Hey everyone, Ron Vaimberg here with another edition of the Ron Vaimberg Podcast. And today I'm very excited to have Tiffany Cross, the EVP from CredEvolv, which is a fintech company that focuses on working with consumers in the hardship space. So Tiffany, let's start off by welcoming you to the program.
Thank you so much, Ron. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Well, Tiffany, when we connected a while back, I was fascinated by the things that you were telling me, which comes with the credit remediation space, and what's been going on in there, and how you guys are helping consumers in a very what I believe is a very unique way. So I thought it was very, very important to get you in front of my audience, because we do need to be helping consumers, and especially when it comes to mortgage financing, there's a lot of crazy things going on that are out there to help consumers, and we want to make sure we're getting them the right type of help, especially if they've had some challenges. So that's what's gotten me really excited about today's interview with you. But how about we start off with just saying, who is Tiffany Cross and what do you do?
Thank you, Ron. I have been in the consumer hardship space for almost 18 long years. So I've worked with lenders and realtors all across the nation, and frankly, consumers too, to really help create ethical path forward for them as far as how do they recover, right? It's all about creating ethical solutions that drive results. And so I come from the for-profit credit repair world you and I talked. I owned my own credit repair company for 16 and a half years here in Southern California. It was always ethical and extremely, solution-based. But unfortunately, there's more bad actors in the for-profit credit repair space, which ultimately made it virtually impossible to continue. So my background is being one of the good guys in that environment. But I quickly saw that there was a better path forward. And so I brought my entire organization and many of my team members over to CredEvolv about 2.5 years ago, recognizing that really the right path forward for today and moving forward is to work with nonprofit HUD-approved housing counselors. And so my history is going from the for-profit world into the nonprofit sector, and CredEvolv partners with nonprofit HUD-approved credit counselors all across the nation to help drive those results for consumers.
The for-profit world, you had mentioned something to me in the past that some things have changed, the rules have changed for the for-profit credit. I'm going to just call it credit repair, but I know credit remediation is really better. But so things have changed in the for-profit world, and then let's talk about what those changes are, and then also, you're now dealing with HUD, which is under a nonprofit. So let's just talk about how that changes. I do respect and appreciate, as the audience does, that when you were helping consumers in the for-profit world, you were doing it the right way. But we know a lot of things have changed. So how about just bringing my audience up to date on that?
Absolutely. It's been an interesting journey, right? I think ultimately, if you've been in the mortgage space any length of time, there's that credit repair guy or gal or company that you've heard about. And I will say that the industry's reputation of bad actors is well deserved. I think the statistic was that when I owned and operated my own company, only 3% nationwide that were for-profit credit repair organizations were actually compliant. And that compliance varies from state to state, anywhere from DOJ registrations to CFPB compliance, FTC compliance. And what ended up happening, Ron, was, if you've been, like I said, if you've been in the space any length of time, you get sick and tired of referring your clients to these companies that essentially would charge money. The consumer kind of never reached goal. There was very little communication. And frankly, you had these consumers that were already struggling, and then they became more harmed than where they even started. And so the government came in very hot-handedly over the last several years, enforcing what we call the TSR. And that is the telesales marketing rule. And it simply states that, listen, if you are conducting any level of credit repair in the for-profit world, because of the amount of consumers that frankly were filing complaints with the CFPB, and were very unhappy with what was really happening in the industry, they basically said, in a nutshell, that if you are a for-profit entity, you cannot charge even $1 for credit repair until you have completed 6 months of credit remediation. And even then, the consumer must essentially sign off on being charged after the fact. So it essentially sent companies like, I'm going to say the big one, Lexington Law, with the company that they used as their big fish in the sea example, but basically said, we don't like this, right? We want consumers to receive what they should be receiving, which is ethical, compliant resources that don't charge an arm and a leg, where the consumer actually feels as if they've received what they were promised. And so that law quickly changed and shifted the for-profit world. And of course, some of us that were doing things the right way and compliantly saw the handwriting on the wall that, this is not what is the new path forward. And so ultimately, it's a big change. We know that 1 in 4 consumers right now are needing some level of assistance to be able to become mortgage ready. And you have lenders that are saying, I'd rather not refer at all than refer to the bad actors in the for-profit space. So there was a huge gap that was happening where lenders, rightfully so, didn't want to tarnish their reputations by sending to a for-profit credit repair company.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's still companies out there that are operating and charging.
Absolutely, they are, and it's not compliant. It's illegal at this point. So you have all kinds of red tape issues, right? Where we're seeing that happening, and unfortunately, some don't know about the regulation. And they have a certain person that they might be using that's charging compliance, but it's extremely illegal right now.
Got it. Okay. So you're partnered or you're connected through as a nonprofit, and so you're certainly held, besides the law, just dealing with a nonprofit, you're really, especially when you're dealing with HUD, held to a higher standard than pretty much the norm, I would say.
Exactly. So to clarify, so we partner with nonprofit HUD-approved housing counselors. So CredEvolv is essentially the fintech platform that sits in the middle between the amazing counseling agencies, our lender partners that refer clients, and then, of course, the consumer. So we essentially create the solution that counseling agencies, of course, utilize to support the consumers in reaching their goals.
Okay, so the solution that you create is exactly what?
So we work with the nonprofits to be able to meet the consumer in literally every component of a consumer hardship experience. So for example, you might have a lender that pulls credit, sees that the consumer has a 580. Usually the goal is 620 to 640 for best pricing. And they're going, well, what do? I can run a Wayfinder. I can run a simulator tool. That's going to give very basic information that's often not very actionable to a low to moderate income consumer. Great. Essentially, that Wayfinder is going to tell them to pay down credit cards and settle collections. And then at that point, what happens, right? We know that you're essentially telling the consumer to DIY their own credit solution. I don't know what the actual statistic is, but I've been told it's usually 2 to 3% of the consumers that are given that path kind of never really do the things, right? Or they at least never come back to the original person.
And one of the things this is one of the things that I advise my clients against is I've had clients who have come to me and they've said, well, I'm spending a lot of time helping clients, improve their credit. I'm giving them that guidance and advice so they'll come back to me. And I just tell them, I can tell my clients to go, that's crazy. I go, first of all, it's not your area of expertise as an originator. And secondly, that is not the best use of your time as an originator. It doesn't mean that you don't care about the client. It's just that you're spending all of this time trying to guide them when there are people that can guide them. People like, you and the organization that you're how you connect everybody that can guide them. And I'm assuming that anybody who would work through you would also, there's some kind of mechanism to having that client referred back to the originator.
Correct. And so, Ron, I love the questions because they're so relevant to today, right? We've got lenders that are saying my pipeline is diminishing. Hopefully that changes soon. I'm seeing more and more need, but not knowing what to do. And frankly, don't want to do the credit repair thing. I don't even like the phrase for that very reason.
Right.
But when we talk about the Wayfinder solutions and we say, okay, I ran the Wayfinder, I sent the client off to do these things, what does the pipeline look like? Do they ever come back? And I love that line of questioning. When you refer to CredEvolv, we take that mindset and we say we don't want any borrower to be left behind. Every opportunity matters. And it allows you to say, you know what, I did run a Wayfinder. Here's a few things that you can do on your own. But in addition to that, let me make an introduction to a nonprofit HUD-approved housing counselor who can give you a free consultation, do a much more robust assessment of what's really impacting your particular situation, because we understand that every single credit report has its own unique fingerprint story, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not ever going to be the one size fits all 1990s credit repair solution that's going to work, where you just dispute everything and call it a day. The
Oh, but
counselors
why
need to
not?
say,
Sorry.
I know, right? It's not the Ozempic of credit. Um, but realistically, the counseling agencies might say, okay, let's look at this. The consumer might need help with budgeting, and that their DTI may be an issue. They may need to address their collection accounts in a way that align with mortgage underwriting guidelines, right? We can't just dispute things arbitrarily.
Right.
So we have the same access to the same decisioning technology that lenders use in their decisioning. So our housing counselors have what we call home coach, and they do run home coach assessments to guide the consumer, not just towards credit improvement and FICO improvement, but actually towards mortgage readiness. And that is something that traditional credit repair companies have never focused on or even had the ability to do.
Right. So, and I mean, all of this sounds great. And, part of one of the things, or you don't know, but part of one of the things that I do is I will always look for where are the holes, where are the gaps, where are the things that are not being said that my audience would want to know before they would even jump into something like this. I mean, everything you've said sounds absolutely amazing. I absolutely love it. And so my question is, okay, so I'm an originator. I have a client and their credit comes in at 560. I call you, what happens? Well, first of all, do I call you? First of all, do I call you?
Right. I was going to say the first thing that would happen is a lender would essentially obtain the opt-in from the consumer to be referred. That's simply just, are you okay with receiving a free consultation with an ethical solution? It's nonprofit HUD-approved housing counseling. Usually, I'd say 95% of the time, the consumer is going to say yes to a free consultation.
Sure.
At that point in time, the lender would make an introduction through a landing page on our website. Again, I say this, but we also have enterprise relationships that we have API integration right through some of our enterprise partners' tech stack. So it can be done through the CRM, through the LOS, through the point of sale. But in this case, if you're just an originator and we don't have an enterprise relationship established with your company yet,
Right.
then you would just want to make an introduction through the landing page. And all that's doing is setting us up for the ability to reach out to complete that consultation. At that time, typically within 12 hours or less, the consumer is going to receive a call from a housing counselor. And at that point in time, they'll do a deep dive, understanding what exactly is impacting the score, what the goals are, what the timeline is of the consumer. And we'll be able to strategically align that consumer with the appropriate nonprofit agency that really specializes in what that consumer needs. For example, do they have federal student loans that they need help with? Is it debt management? Is it mortgage readiness? And a little bit of all the other things as well. And that's something that we really want to, we pride ourselves on, is that's a very white glove experience where the consumer gets met right where they're at. At that point in time, if the consumer moves forward, what's great about it, and I think what our lender partners are fascinated by, is the high level of communication that they receive from the HUD counselors utilizing our platform, where our lender partners know exactly the outcome of the initial consultation. If the client's moved forward with our counseling agencies, they'll have monthly updates provided with actual mortgage FICO scores, because for-profit credit repair companies aren't even legally allowed to pull credit. They usually require that the clients have their own little credit monitoring with the wonky non-lendable scores that you never even know if they're accurate.
Are you suggesting that what I get on my credit card is not right for me to get a mortgage?
Well, it might not be right for mortgage lending. You're correct.
Okay.
Very true. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I heard I don't know what, I heard something like there's like 20 or 30 something different credit scores that
So,
all
so
sound,
confusing.
that all sound like they could be like, I think there's, and maybe I should have done my homework as far as just an insane number of even FICO models. It's not one based upon the type of lending. Okay. So I'm an originator, so I'm going to get that feedback. And if the customer achieves their goal and follows through with the plan after they've begun working with the HUD-approved counselor, then when they're ready, well, I'm going to be kept in the know anyway. So
3 months. Yep. You're going to have.
Okay, so I don't have to worry about, okay, now they're going to get handed off to somebody else.
No, you're going to be in the know, so much so that our lender partners literally reach out to the client and say, "Congratulations, Ron. I see that your score's up another 30 points this month. How amazing. I'm going to be waiting for you at the finish line. This is so good."
Okay.
They also like to really reach out to the realtor partner that referred the client and say, "Listen, this is why you're using me. This is why I'm your preferred lender." I never tell clients no. Instead, I turn the no into a not yet, and I create a path forward for your client. So keep sending them to me. But I think the best part of the entire process of beyond the accountability and transparency of our program is that we actually push the client back to the referral partner at goal reach. So for example, if you specify during the referral, I need a 620 or I need a 640, or this is a refi, I need a 720. Our counselors design the program around what we consider goal reach. And we literally notify the lender, your clients reach 620. We run our home coach assessment to ensure that they're ready to go and that they're really loan ready, not just FICO improved, but loan ready. So we don't.
Explain how that's different. Explain
Yeah.
what you're doing on the loan ready side. What does that mean? I mean, I know what the words mean, but what does
Sure.
that mean that you're doing? It almost sounds like you're doing what a loan officer would do.
Yeah, not really. We're not here to replace the underwriter, certainly. But because we have access to the home coach assessment, we essentially have the built into our platform identified what we would need to focus on to ensure that a consumer could complete a loan application successfully. So without going into another 45-minute podcast on that, I'll give you one example.
Okay.
Because it's amazing. It's really a huge distinguisher. But one thing I'll just mention is that one of the examples of a qualification of that is that traditionally for-profit credit repair companies put everything in dispute. Everything's in dispute.
Yeah.
And if they communicate at all to the LO, they'll say, "Yep, client's doing great. They're at a 640." You pull credit and go, "Yeah, right. Not only is it not a 640, but all these accounts are now in dispute, which is going to cause a massive issue for underwriting."
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
So in our platform, we would never leave accounts in dispute before pushing the consumer back. So we know that we have a true mortgage FICO score that's accurate, that's not inflated because accounts remain in dispute. All the accounts would be removed from dispute status before we push it back. So we essentially are saying, "Ron, we're ready to go. This client's good to go and ready to start the loan application."
Okay. Well, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And so just for the audience to be clear, nonprofit does not mean no money. It means that the consumer and or you can participate in helping the client through this process. And Tiffany, when we first met, you had mentioned something that there are some, and I don't know if this is really the place to get into pricing because I guess it would be case by case. But there are some cases where the consumer pays the nonprofit. There's some cases where I think the consumer might pay part and their lender, if they believe in the client enough, will pay part. And I guess there's some institutions that pay the whole thing for the consumer.
Correct. Absolutely. We're finding that some of the largest lenders in the nation, company-wide, have said this is incredible. This is a resource that we need because we don't want our LOs going rogue and using local, random, non-compliant companies. So because of the ROI, because we're receiving 25%, 35% of our leads back as loan ready clients, and they see the value at an enterprise level, we have some partners that subsidize a portion of the enrollment or all of the enrollment that the consumer would pay, plus potentially a closing cost credit. So we have different models
Wow.
of participation. We have some LOs that are not a part of an enterprise arrangement with their company, and they'll just say, listen, I love this so much. I need it so much because I work with low to moderate income buyers, that they'll offer a closing cost credit, as I mentioned at the end. And then we have some that say, I just want my client to self-fund it completely. And
Okay.
that's okay too, right?
Sure.
So, yes.
What kind, is it a flat fee? Is it, because a lot of these credit repair companies, they almost charge like a monthly fee with like no real, I mean, they're almost incentivized to drag it out as long as they possibly can.
Oh, they totally are, right? It's like, how long
Okay.
can I keep this client paying this money? And I used to call it in my previous life, it's do you have a heartbeat and a credit card? Oh, you're a great client, great candidate. No, you're not. Just because you're breathing doesn't mean that you're the right candidate for certain programs. So, and that's what I love about the nonprofit model is that it's often very government subsidized through grants and just different opportunities to make this accessible for consumers, right? We want this to be something that low to moderate income consumers feel like is in their reach. So they do pay an enrollment fee. It's very minimal. In fact, I don't. It's currently it's actually we're dropping it soon, so I don't even know that I want to mention how much it is right now. But it's very affordable. It's a one-time setup fee for the consumer. $100 ish, depending on the situation
Which
to get
program?
started. The monthly fee begins month 2, also very minimal. Really, what it is the hard costs. The consumer's paying for the cost of the credit reports, the expense of what it takes to do the work itself. Basically, they'd spend the same amount if they were doing it doing it on their own.
Right.
But in turn, they don't just have a counselor telling them what to do. The counselors actually do the work for them and with them. And I think Ron, you and I were joking about the fact that it's sort of like joining a gym and having a trainer versus, doing it on your own on your elliptical. The
Mhm.
clients meet with their counselor every month for up to 30, 45 minutes at a time. And
Oh,
it's
wow.
very personalized where they get to know the name of the dog that barks and interrupts the call every month.
Okay.
And all the things. So it's just I think that's our secret sauce is the interaction with the consumer every month with their counselor. And so for that, there's just a minimal expense. It's not expensive. That's, the nature of the program is not to go on forever and ever. In fact, the average length of time in our program is about 5 months, with some completing as early as 3, some 6. Obviously, consumers that are referred with no scores at all or a 300 needing to reach 640 might be on the tail end of the 5, 6, 8 months. But most consumers trying to reach goal that are referred in the low 500s, needing that 640, can very easily accomplish that within 5 months, if not less.
Without pinning you against the wall or making a commitment. So, because there are different, I understand that there are different paths because based upon their situation. Someone who's in the program, I'm a former originator and I deal with originators every day. And as much as mortgage originators are masters at working in the gray to get a deal approved because the industry is not black and white, when it comes to spending money, I know we can't have a hard number here, but what might it cost in total, just to give my audience a perspective, whether they would even consider subsidizing or they're going to just, which is fine, or putting it all on the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of number are we talking about? Not including the debt that would have to be paid off. I'm talking about just for the fees for the service.
Sure. Yeah. The average, you could right now very safely say 700-ish for 5 months of participation in the program. And again, we're doing everything we can with our counseling partners to drive that cost even lower. But it's unheard of. I mean, I know some
Yeah, I know
for-profit
that
credit
is.
repair companies that charge 500 to even talk to someone, and then it's,
Yeah,
several hundred a month. So it's not meant to be expensive. We want it obtainable. But as a closing cost credit, a lot of our lenders will say, well, gosh, absolutely. I'll reimburse up to 5 months at the closing table for consumers that, maybe they want the consumer to have some skin in the game, right? There's some
right,
value there.
right.
Other lenders that take a little bit more of a socially responsible, no, we want to help everybody, right? With a
Hmm.
FICO band of this and a DTI of this, we're fully self funding it. So there's many ways to accomplish it. But consumers that know, Ron really cares. He's investing in my success,
Right.
literally investing in my success. I mean, imagine the dividends that pays and the annuity that it creates for future business in your pipeline.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I love the idea of the closing cost credit. Um, More of my audience is broker banker world. So probably, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but less likely to fund it all up front. But certainly, I love the idea of essentially paying it out of profit. I remember a long time ago when I was an originator, I used to do something that nobody did, and I offered a money back guarantee on appraisals. And people said, "Well, that was crazy." I said, "If the borrower got turned down, and I told them that they were going to be able to get a loan, I'd refund their appraisal." I even made a deal with them that I go, if the appraisal came in low and we couldn't make the deal work, that I'd refund their appraisal. People thought I was absolutely insane, but the reality of it is, and the numbers showed it, I had to give back 2% of I had to issue refunds on 2% of all the clients. But the amount of increased business that I got, it's called risk reversal. The amount of increased business I got was tremendous because I was the only one out there doing it. If I were to go back and do it today, I would still be the only one out there doing it because this creates a huge avenue for clients to really help more people. So as we're getting close on time here. So my question for you is, I'm an originator. I'm going to be a little skeptical. So how do you get paid?
Great question. Yeah, the
I'm not asking you what you get paid. I'm just asking you
right,
how you
right.
get
Well,
paid.
good. Not enough. That's always going to be my answer, Ron. Not enough.
Okay.
Um, no, the how we're paid, right? We have enterprise relationships where some of our enterprise partners paid it to be able to have the integration right through their tech stack. They
Right.
want the high level of assistance with their technology department, their the interaction that we provide to their LOs,
Sure.
all the technology influence, and they see the value in that. So there are some that pay us monthly. And then we also have, of course, the counseling agencies that pay us to utilize our
Okay.
technology to be able to think commercially. Historically, nonprofits really lacked the ability to think commercially to drive the types of results that lenders needed to continue to be receiving the referrals. So typically, that's our revenue stream in a nutshell. But consumers don't pay CredEvolv. I think that's more important. They don't pay us; they pay the nonprofit directly, the
Okay.
nonprofit agencies directly.
I'm sure that's also going to give originators peace of mind also
Mhm.
in the referral process. So as before we wrap this up, definitely before we finish, I want to know if someone's an originator, what would be their next step to be able to leverage you. But before we get to that final piece, what is the question I haven't asked you? What is the one thing that's so important for the audience to know that I didn't think to ask you?
I love it. Thanks, Ron. I think the tendency, and this might be a statement rather than a question, but I think it's important to touch on, right? I think lenders get in their own heads a little bit and they sort of decide, well, if this isn't close to being ready, then I'm not going to send it. Or, what the DTI's out of whack, they have late payments now, they're nowhere near mortgage ready. So I'm going to make the determination on behalf of the client that they're hopeless. It was essentially something that's unspoken, but that's sort of sometimes what happens. And when you have
Okay.
a mindset shift and you say, you know what, every consumer should have access to at least a free consultation. Your brand, your reputation, the fact that you become that mortgage waymaker and that you didn't say no, right? You didn't say no. You created an introduction. Whether the consumer moves forward or not, that's okay. That's up to them. But
Right.
at least you've created an opportunity for them to know what they need to work on, how they can become ready, and provide that hope message rather than the discouraged message. And I think when I even talk to the lender partners that we work with now, they're like, Tiff, I haven't been sending any to you because everybody seems like they're too far gone, right? Or I have sent, but I only sent a fraction of who I, and I'm like, no, we can help with debt, we can help with student loans, we can help with collection accounts, we can help with late payments. So realistically, I think it's about understanding you don't have to overthink whether or not someone's a good referral, right? Just
Okay.
send them
That's
over.
huge. That
Send
that
them over.
that that is huge. That is huge. Okay. Tiffany, this has been fantastic. I wish back in the day when I was originating this existed. I used to work in the inner city in New York, and I had plenty of people that could have benefited from a program like this. I also always had a mindset, though, that if someone's unwilling to even invest a little bit in helping themselves improve their financial situation or their credit, what is the likelihood of them even really being able to, what is the likelihood of them actually moving forward to buy a house? So to me, this becomes almost another way that someone, as an originator, look, they're referring them to you. The consultation is free,
Mhm.
and the overall cost, if we go with an average of 700, again, not pinning that, not pinning
Sure.
that to you.
Yeah.
And someone's not wants to buy a house and they're not willing to even invest in themselves to get themselves into the position to buy a house. Well, that kind of tells you then where that customer is, that consumer is, which is fine. That's their choice.
Mhm.
But then it also prevents the LO from going through that endless follow-up process of someone who's not even, the dial's not even moving on. I love that.
Yeah, I feel like it's that Jerry Maguire scene, right? Like, help me, help you. I mean, our lender partners are like, oh my gosh, I just want this consumer to care enough to take the steps. And you're right, it helps qualify how serious they are if they're not even willing to receive that free consultation first and foremost, right? So, um,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm an originator. I have a client. How do I start working with you? How do I set this up? How do I get a hold of you? Let's give the audience all that information.
Thank you. First and foremost, I would love it. I'd love to have a 5 to 10 minute Zoom call, Google Meets, you name it. You can send a pigeon with a note in the mouth if you need to. Just a quick 5 to 10 minutes so I can understand, or we as a company can understand who you serve, what your market looks like, and how we can support you. So that's always great. But if you go to our website, which is credevolve.com, and I will say it's credevolve, no E at the end.com. You can
Oh,
click the
wait, spell out the domain
yes,
because some people are going to put in credit. And that was the
yes.
mistake I made in the beginning. So,
That's okay. It's easy to do. It's cred, CREDEVOLV.com, credevolve.com with no E at the end. Once you get to take a look at our testimonial video that's on there, first of all, it's a real, I know the client personally, so it's really exciting. Check it out. Look around. We've got a great blog, but you can actually begin referring clients literally by just clicking the refer tab at the very top of our
oh,
website.
wow.
Enter the client's first and last name, email, phone number, basic contact information. You would also then put your own information in there. And then, of course, any notes that you want the counselor to know about the client. For example, they're a teacher, don't call before 3 o'clock. This is a Spanish speaking client. I need a Spanish speaking credit counselor. Anything that you think would be relevant. Once you click submit, we'll be notified that you have submitted your referral, and we will set up a portal for you so that you can access every single person you've ever referred. You can have your own pipeline visible to you with all the exciting updates.
Wow. That's amazing. What if somebody wants to speak to you first? How do they do that?
Absolutely. You can shoot me a quick email. I don't know, Ron, if you'll put my contact information, my
We
phone
will.
number.
We'll get it on the bottom of the. We'll make sure it appears.
Call me, text me, email me. Let's get a call on the calendar. That's what I live for. I absolutely love what I do. I'm so passionate about it, and I know it works. So I would love that.
That is fantastic. I'll let everybody know. I won't just have anybody on a podcast. And when I initially connected with Tiffany, I'm going to be the initial person who's going to be a skeptic. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you in every interaction, and I don't know if you can tell, this is not a rehearsed program. This is, I just had a basic understanding and enough for me to bring Tiffany on. But all of our interactions, all of our engagements, Tiffany, you have been just incredibly responsive. Whether, usually within minutes of an email, I was hearing back from you. So that tells me a lot. So, look, I think what you're doing is fantastic. I think this is very unique. It's something that's very much needed, and you've made this process ridiculously simple, and I'm all about simple, which means, people, and I say this in all my programs, there's a difference between easy and simple. Easy means little to no effort. Simple means it's not complicated. This is simple. Mm-hmm. You just laid out what they have to do. Some people might even put that as easy, but the first step is for them to connect with you and or through your company, or just test your system with a client. So that is awesome. Tiffany, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Ron,
really
I'm
appreciate
honored.
you being here.
Such an honor. And I have the utmost respect for you as well. And it's truly a privilege
Thank you.
For you to say such wonderful things, and it's mutual respect for sure. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We'll see you later.